Too many Canadian homes are being broken instead of fixed. In the last 8 years, the amount of money spent annually on renovations in this country has doubled to over $40 billion. The figure would be a lot lower if so many Canadian jobs didn't have to be done twice, even 3 times.
Well, it's not cut well enough.
Because of shoddy work performed by the homeowners themselves. Who is Canada's worst handyman? We don't know yet, but we're working on it.
To cope with life here at the Handyman Rehabilitation Centre, I've started bringing my morning coffee down here to the basement so I can, just soak up this gorgeous atmosphere. I know it's hideous, but at least when I go upstairs to see the work that's being done by Canada's worst handyman, it doesn't seem so bad. The 5 most clueless amateur home renovators in the country are up there right now, each trying to completely remodel a 1-bedroom apartment in just 12 days. Shelves are dangling from the walls, the floors are half installed, and furniture lies strewn about in pieces. And that's the work they've finished.
We found the candidates for Canada's worst handyman by conducting a nationwide search. Merle was called out by his fed-up wife, Shelley.
Shelley thinks my handiwork is too fast and too sloppy.
Here at the rehab center, Merle's progress has been patchy at best. This is Merle shingling, flooring, and plastering.
You ever plastered over duct tape before?
Not this big.
Keith was nominated as Canada's worst handyman by his crafty friend, David.
I'm just not a focused person. I am a little bit of a scatterbrain.
Oh, I remember. You slide it in like a puzzle. Oh, shoot. Where did it go?
I cannot in my wildest dreams imagine that I am the most unhandy person in the world.
For her own good, Jeannie was brought to rehab by her dear friend Lawrence. Over 4 decades, Lawrence has witnessed a lot of Jeannie's construction errors, but when he saw her hanging curtains, he couldn't take it anymore.
I used bigger nails on the ends and smaller thumbtacks in the center because it looks more attractive that way. Well, I haven't a clue really about anything in the way of renovating.
Barry's next. He's a substitute teacher from BC's Gulf Islands who's almost been electrocuted, crushed, and killed by his own ineptitude. For the sake of Barry's family, his neighbor Scott called us to come and get him.
He should never pick up a tool, ever.
This is the action I really like. Power tool against the limb.
I hope there's people out there that are worse than I am.
The last of the least is Daryl, who was nominated as Canada's worst handyman by his loving wife, Sarah.
Wait. In our households, we go to IKEA. By the time we get it home, we're already fighting.
Too short, too long, snap it together, make a box.
This is why I don't like doing it with you, because you just start ramming everything.
So far, the kitchens in these apartments have been used mostly as workspaces. It's terrible. We've seen plaster being mixed in the sinks. We've seen the countertops being used as sawhorses. It's all half-baked, and this behavior has to change. So on this episode, Canada's worst handymen will completely redo their kitchens. It's a recipe for disaster.
The nominees have been at the rehab center for a week, and they're about to receive their toughest assignment yet from our head instructor, Greg. It's part carpentry, part plumbing, and potentially all frustrating.
Today we're going to do the kitchen sink and countertop installation.
Greg House is a general contractor whose calloused hands have done 3 decades of home renovation work. Greg has no time for laziness and less time for excuses.
His creativity is just an excuse for poor workmanship.
Next to Greg is our aesthetic expert, Robin Lockhart, owner of a design firm in downtown Toronto. Robin is a perfectionist and proud of it.
That concerns me from a design and build perspective, but also from a safety perspective.
From their high-tech surveillance center, Robin and Greg observe all the actions of Canada's lousiest builders. At the end of every episode, we honor the most improved handyman with this tool belt.
I did it!
And And we shame the worst by making them hang their head. At the end of our 6th episode, we will know who is Canada's worst handyman.
So you are going to go to your suites and you are going to remove the old countertop, the old sink. You're going to install a new countertop. You're going to have to cut out your sink. You're going to have to install your sink. And you're going to have to connect your plumbing. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Let's go, guys.
Since getting to rehab, Canada's worst handymen have had their nominators there to help with every project.
Measuring tape, but I think it's on top of the toilet. You want to go check? Please?
No.
But in this episode, things are going to be different.
One thing that we're doing to mix it up is we're going to not put you with the people you nominated as Canada's worst handyman.
We're changing the partnerships because some of our handymen use their nominators as a crutch.
I'd like you to fix this for me.
Some use their nominators as gophers.
Well, why don't you get off your ass and go do it? I'm trying to fix this thing here.
And some don't use their nominator at all. Keith's nominator, David, is the son of a carpenter. And so far, when Keith's done something right, it's been because David has been coaching him. That won't happen today. For this morning's kitchen sink challenge, David will be coupled with
Daryl. Oh! Sarah, you're going to be with Merle. Scott, you're with Jeannie.
No, Jeannie.
Lawrence, you're with Barry.
Oh, you're lucky. Good.
And who have I missed? Shelley? Indeed. Please go to the rooms that I just described and have a good couple hours.
Okay.
Well, no one was too thrilled about that.
Surprise! I'm your new wife.
The nominees don't know about the partner switch until they get back to their apartments.
What are you doing here?
And Barry isn't happy about it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, what? With a new partner.
Yeah? Just when you thought your day wasn't going to get any worse, huh?
During the challenges, Sarah is usually quite blunt with her husband.
You know, I can't take it anymore, all right? One thing at a time.
Pairing her with Merle, who can be volatile himself,
I paid attention in class, okay? Don't me up.
could be dangerous.
She might work really well with that person, or she might get really frustrated and blow up on them.
For Daryl, being buddied with David could also be combustible. David has been very annoyed by Daryl's rude behavior recently.
You know what? Today, Daryl has been a total jerk.
So far, though, David's being extremely helpful.
Bet Sarah never helps her like this, does she?
No, man, you're already way more helpful than she is.
Crowbars are designed to pry things apart using leverage instead of brute strength. This is the right way to use one. This is the wrong way. Luckily, Daryl manages to keep the frame that holds up his counter intact. Now he and David are laying the new laminate top in place so they can figure out where to cut the hole for the sink. Standard sinks come with a cardboard template. Place the template wherever you want the basin, trace around it, cut out the hole, and drop in your shiny new receptacle.
It's our first sink.
Then, mark the faucet openings at the back, remove the sink, and use the brand new drill bit we provided to bore holes exactly 1.5 inches wide, making sure, of course, your drill is not in reverse.
Wicked.
Once you secure the sink in place by doing what's called tying it down, it's time for plumbing. While David and Daryl read the instructions and calmly proceed with their waterworks, Barry is still trying to remove his old sink.
I think we should take this out first.
Instead of unscrewing his tie-down bolts, Barry smashes them into oblivion. In Keith's room, he's got a similar technique.
Wait.
And in Merle's room, the carnage is worse.
Oh my God. Oh my God, you're scaring me.
In his usual haste to get finished, Merle neglects to fully detach the counter from the frame before ripping it out. When the old counter comes off, some of the frame comes with it.
Merle. He's got to put that back on.
He does.
Boy, he's a real hands-on kind of guy.
When Merle attempts to get his new countertop in place, he realizes the problem.
Well, you can salvage it, can't you?
Certainly try.
Okay, what do we need, Shelley?
Like her husband, Merle's wife Shelley is also a hands-on kind of person. She's supposed to be helping Keith, But really, she's doing the hardest work.
Suffice it to say, you're more manly than I am, Joe. Oh, my God.
To remove her sink encounter, Scott helps Jeannie grasp which tool to use.
How would we start by taking this with an X-Acto knife or something?
An X-Acto knife.
How do we take this?
They decide to take out the sink first. Or, more to the point, Scott decides they'll take out the sink. Then he gives Jeannie her first job, finding the lost flathead screw bit.
Everything is everywhere.
Now I've got her out of the room. I can do a lot more work.
Shall I go and get one, Scott?
Sure.
Jeannie spends 12 minutes looking valiantly for the lost part. Along the way, she touches 16 tools, she starts and stops one major task, and she accomplishes nothing.
By the time you found it, I'll have got this thing cut.
I know, you will.
So just always try and think one step ahead of how you can be helpful.
Scott's supposed to be helpful. Jeannie's supposed to be the working handyman. When the countertop is installed and the new sinkhole's ready to be cut, Scott won't let Jeannie touch her own jigsaw.
Think next step ahead.
Barry has to cut his sinkhole too, but instead of putting the template on the counter and tracing around it, Barry leaves his cardboard guide on the floor and guesses at his cut.
Barry has put in his countertop now, but he didn't even use the template that came with the sink.
Got it.
Barry's sink doesn't fit, so
You gotta take more off.
Barry grooms his hole. To make the faucet openings, Barry uses an inexplicably small bit. And with his drill in reverse, he's more likely to start a smoldering fire than he is to cut a hole.
I don't know why it's doing that.
What about this
Wait a
thing?
second. It's going the wrong way.
Why Barry isn't using the proper size drill bit we gave him is a mystery. Until the jigsaw comes back out.
He's using his jigsaw instead of just using the drill with the proper bit.
Yeah.
We've given him everything to make it as easy as humanly possible.
He has everything they need.
It's not pretty, but all of Canada's worst handymen do manage to get their countertops on and their sinks in. Well, all except Keith. When we return, Keith drills the biggest hole of his life.
Holy that's cool.
Oh, a new partner.
Yeah?
The country's most talentless builders are renovating under unusual conditions today. Instead of working with the person who forced them into rehab, the candidates for Canada's Worst Handyman have been partnered with each other's nominators.
What are you doing here?
So far, everyone's been on their best behavior.
Oh, boy.
Oh my God, you're scaring me.
And overall, the stress level has been lower than usual.
Bet Sarah never helps her like this, does she?
No, man, you're already way more helpful than she is.
The new couples are replacing kitchen counters and sinks.
Okay, now the fun part.
With the water shut off, it's time to dive into the sea of plumbing parts we explained how to use in class this morning.
Excuse me, this is not... How do you fit this in there?
In class, we encouraged everyone to take notes.
That connects on
So
like
what
that.
do we remember about
And
that?
then this needs to connect on with a small piece.
And we reminded them the instructions for most of the fittings are printed on the packages.
Gold on gold, and then black, then white. Maybe we're doing it backwards.
So gold on gold, okay.
Give her hell, Daryl, give her hell.
When the sink drain's done, a U-shaped trap has to be attached. This part's bend is not designed for catching wedding rings. It's there so a puddle of water will always be trapped in the line, blocking any noxious fumes from creeping out of the sewer pipe and into the home.
Holy cow! Look at that!
He took notes, he followed instructions, and he remained calm at all times. In an hour and a half, Daryl's ready to clean up. The rest of Canada's worst handymen aren't doing so hot. From the trap, measure and connect a downhill line to the drain pipe. In this case, that means attaching a new plastic pipe to an old copper one. To make the connection, a rubber sleeve is pulled over both vessels and secured in place with hose clamps.
This is where Merle might have issues because this is all measuring all the pipes in order to make them connect. And we know Merle doesn't like to measure anything.
Sure enough, Merle eyeballs the cut. Not surprisingly, the pipe Merle cut to reach the drain is too short.
I'm sure tempted to get my duct tape.
Merle has a slight issue when it comes to duct tape. He thinks it can be used for anything and everything, from patching holes to dressing wounds.
Time to pull out the duct tape.
Knowing he'd try using it in this plumbing challenge, we removed every strip of duct tape from Merle's room. Instead of measuring and cutting the correct length of pipe to go from his trap to his drain, Merle comes up with a ridiculous plan. First, he attaches the unused narrow tailpipe from his sink kit to his drain line. Then, he cuts yet another piece of plastic pipe and sort of trombones it in place. Now he can adjust the length at will. But how will he stop it from leaking?
Okay, don't think about it. Do something.
Merle's pondering. He looks stuck.
Merle is so perplexed by this problem, he decides to abandon the task and hook up the water lines instead.
What time do you give up and go to duct tape?
Probably when I get to that bridge, because I tried solving that problem and I'm stumped. Look, I cut everything and everything.
No duct tape, buddy.
I'll try.
No duct tape.
Ta-da!
Bored because they're finished, David and Daryl set off to do good deeds.
Hey guys, where did you get stuck?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
I don't know what to put
No,
inside.
that's wrong.
No, I know it's wrong.
Oh.
It's the only one that fits inside the rubber tube.
No. This goes inside the rubber tube.
Merle is still getting the water hooked up, and Sarah is still being pleasant company.
Have you guys fought at all?
No.
Now, if you were with your husband on this task, do you think there'd be fighting?
Oh my God, yeah.
What's going on there? Why so much fighting when you're with your husband?
Because we frustrate each other. That's why.
I said to him, if your wife was here with you, do you think you'd be done? And what do you think he said?
No.
And do you think he's right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what he said, is no.
And with that, Daryl enters the happy workplace.
How's it going?
So I hear you work better without me in the room? Well, that's what I was told just moments ago.
Come on, Daryl. Come on.
In Keith's room, everything being done is an exciting new experience.
Holy that's cool.
I'll see if I can cram it on there.
And in Barry's room, he and Lawrence are trying to do what David suggested, but they're not quite getting it right.
You know what? Lawrence and I, it's like the blind leading the blind.
Merle is now on the hunt for duct tape, but the only sticky thing he finds is plumber's putty, so he heads home to see if it will work.
I want duct tape, but I'll give him a big cast.
To seal up his mismatched pipes, Merle may as well be using a wad of chewing gum. Plumber's putty is designed to be used in long, thin strips, sort of like caulking. Using a gob of it to plug a highly stressed joint like this is pointless.
1 minute, everybody! There's just 1 minute left!
When the time limit runs out, Jeannie's not close to being finished. In Barry's room, he's ready for the test.
Oh, no.
Keith hasn't even touched his plumbing.
We're about halfway-ish.
And Merle finishes sculpting his silly putty sleeve in time for the test.
Is it good?
Nothing with a little bit of duct tape won't fix it.
For now, it holds water. But as a project of permanence, Merle's sink is sunk. When we come back, tiling has the nominees floored.
There's got to be a better way to do this.
This decoration renovation fad that Canada's going through right now is downright dangerous. Normal civilians are ripping out walls and putting in new ones, all because they saw some smiling professional do it on TV. To show you all the real-life pitfalls of amateur home improvement, we've assembled the nation's 5 worst do-it-yourselfers, and we've given them a series of home renovation challenges that are apparently beyond their skill level. After 6 episodes, whoever deserves it the most will be named Canada's worst handyman.
After 2 hours of dealing with countertops and sinks, it's time to move on to the kitchen floor. Our design expert Robin explains the tricks involved in tiling the classic black and white check pattern.
Okay, so we're doing the peel and stick tiles today, but what we're doing is a checkerboard pattern as well as a diamond or on the 45 degrees. So the first thing you have to do is square off a center portion of your room.
To find the center, you need to imagine your room as a rectangle. Then come in from both sides an equal distance until you have a square. Then snap a chalk line from corner to corner. X marks the center of the room in perfect 45-degree angles. Introducing the chalk line.
Snapping. Snap it again. Okay?
Surprise! Give me a little hug, Jeannie.
Once again, we're pairing the candidates with different partners to see how it will affect their work.
Let's put that there.
In his apartment, Keith finds the middle of the kitchen floor by guessing.
The middle of the room, Lawrence, is either here or here. But I'm
I would say
it's
there's
right here where I am.
I would say, definitely.
Where I'm standing. So
Yeah.
that's the middle of the room.
Black, white, black.
Merle starts without measuring a thing, and try as he might, Daryl just can't seem to get centered.
How you doing?
Fine. We're just making sure we have the right starting point.
And do you?
We're just deciding if we have the right starting point.
You understand the concept of a square?
The square.
When tiles start going down, they spread out quickly. Then they start coming up. Sarah and Barry are moving along calmly and methodically when Sarah decides she's had enough.
You know what's boring? Barry's boring.
So, Sarah goes to her husband's apartment and walks all over his floor.
Looks like you got a lot of chalk lines. You didn't mop your floor, Daryl? Oh, Daryl, these are terrible over here. You've got them all overlapped and everything.
Canada's worst handymen were told to bring their tiles flush with the edge of the wall.
It's the edge work that sort of makes or breaks that floor.
Sure. It's the detail, you know?
Shelley reads the instructions. They say the same thing Robin said in class. Use the paper from the sticky side of the tile to make a template.
Where's your template?
Then put the X on it.
Her template.
There's got to be a better way to do this.
But instead of making templates, both Sarah and Merle are trying to force their tiles in place.
Put some strip and we'll hide it.
Instead of cutting the tiles, they're sort of folding them or wedging them into the sides, and then I think they're sticking them down and they're going to attempt to cut them along the wall.
Yeah, I can't do this.
And then there's Jeannie.
I cut the most perfect triangle, but it's back to front.
Do another piece. We got lots. You get the hang of it.
That's understandable. Once.
And it's then back to front again. I keep making them back to front, Davy.
How does that happen?
I'm not awfully 100% sure.
Working with Jeannie, I realized that all the stories I've been hearing about her were true, because you don't really understand people fully until you're trapped with them in a really hot apartment.
Let's see how they work when it comes to working around the cabinets or the radiators.
You're gonna see my Pat's job. Get to see this white line.
Close is good enough. That's Merle.
We're seeing atrocious joins as they approach the finish. Butchered edges and frightening tool use. Canada's worst handymen all fail this simple task. But there's no time for resting. The next kitchen challenge is about to start.
That'll help stick it to the floor.
Wallpapering. It's pretty much a lost art. Modern wallpaper comes all pre-glued and ready to go on the wall, but if you want to get the kitschy, old-fashioned retro kind or some brand new custom-made stuff, chances are there's going to be nothing on the back. You're going to have to smear all the adhesive on yourself. And that is the next challenge for Canada's worst handyman. 4 of our participants will get some of this old retro paper, and one of them will be stuck with this tasteless roll.
To hang wallpaper, start by taking measurements from the least conspicuous corner of the room. Using a level, draw a plumb line where the edge of the first strip of wallpaper will be. Then, cut a length of paper that's slightly longer than the wall. Apply the paste and fold the paper in on itself. This folding technique, called booking, makes the paper easy to move. Start the paper just above the ceiling, then run it down the plumb line, smooth out any air bubbles, and hang the next sheet the same way, being sure the pattern lines up exactly. When you reach the end, trim the tops and bottoms, and you're done. According to the instructions on the adhesive, the first step is to make sure the wall is smooth and clean. Jeannie and her new partner Shelley begin diligently sanding. And sanding. And sanding.
We're never going to get this completely smooth.
Daryl has just gone for it, and he's putting the adhesive directly on the wall. They haven't even looked at the wallpaper yet.
Merle's instinct was also to put the glue directly on the wall. But Lawrence has convinced him to correctly put the adhesive on the paper. Why won't Merle listen to his wife like this?
Make sure the edges get it well. That's it. Most important.
I was going to put the glue on the wall and just start sticking, but you got Lawrence stopping me.
Someone should stop Keith. He's putting up his first piece of wallpaper nowhere near the corner, nowhere near level, and
upside down.
What?
Are you with me? Stare at that for a bit.
I never even thought of that. No, it's all queer. Wonder if everybody else did it upside down.
One person did. Daryl.
It's upside down.
It's fall flowers. You're right, though.
No, it's upside down wallpaper.
You're right.
It's upside down wallpaper is what it is. It's not fall flowers.
You're
It's
right.
upside down.
This one's right side up.
I don't understand. These people hang up wallpaper upside down and then they say, let's go with that. No, let's take it down and do it right.
Daryl gets his sheet peeled cleanly off and flipped over. But it's too short to have the flowers line up and reach the ceiling.
No thought to matching the pattern at all.
Daryl continues on anyway, intentionally overlapping his seams. Something Scott has just been told is incorrect.
You're not supposed to overlap.
You're not supposed to overlap.
No. You're supposed to, like, butt them up.
Well, we've done this all wrong. And if I want to get that belt...
It's painful, but Daryl makes the right choice.
Oh, no.
Don't rip! Don't rip! So, just supposed to line it right up, eh?
I guess so. Well, it does look better.
It does look way better.
You know, maybe you did the right thing. I'm willing to admit that.
I found Scott to be really quite useless.
Unfortunately, when Daryl puts up his paper for the third time, he still doesn't line up his flowers.
We tore it all down to here.
But like, look, why ain't he matching this up? Like, this goes there.
Jeannie is still sanding her wall.
I think we're done.
Then she unrolls her wallpaper and sees what she's facing.
Ooh.
Determined to proceed correctly, Jeannie carefully measures the height of her wall.
91.5, but 1/8 over that. It needs to be 1/8 over the 8, the 9/16, so we'll be 9/16. You know what I mean?
Jeannie transfers her convoluted measurement onto the paper and then cuts it right on her brand new floor. When she gets the paper to the wall, she can't line up the seams. It's frustrating.
So are you calling the shots in here too?
In Barry's room, things are going well, but that's to be expected because every bad handyman who's been paired with David today has done well.
Yeah, it's good now. We're good.
You did good, Dave. You really helped me out.
After 50 minutes, Barry's done. It takes Merle an hour to finish.
I'm not blaming you, but I'm saying I've done better.
Daryl gives up in tatters. And Keith's wallpaper is crooked, upside down, and incomplete. Jeannie's not ready to quit yet, so we drop by.
Wait till you see the wallpaper she got. If you don't like your wallpaper, wait till you see this. Jeannie, that's funny.
When we come back, Keith builds a crazy fence.
You should see my head.
During every episode of Canada's Worst Handyman, we bring the candidates together for one group challenge. Today, the team will be led by Keith, who won the honor last episode when he was named the most improved person here.
Keith, of course, is the foreman of the yard work team, so he's going to tell you exactly where he wants you to build the picket fence. We got enough lumber here for at least 12 meters of picket fencing. We also want you to put in these flowers. Just keep in mind that we're trying to beautify this area.
Well, I don't know.
Let me give you some advice. You're the leader. Lead.
Keith uses interpretive dance to explain his fence, but plain English would be more effective. To build a picket fence, lay your 4x4 fence posts flat on the ground. Then nail parallel 2x4s onto them. When that frame is built, dig holes for the fence posts and hoist the skeleton into place. After that, get your level and start putting up the pickets. Keith's in charge, but Jeannie's the only member of the group with a concrete plan of attack.
How about just putting the main big square 4x4s or 6x6s in the concrete and then...
Keith reminds Jeannie who's wearing the foreman's belt, and he orders her to start the most back-breaking work of the project.
Ooh, good. I got 150 pounds in the...
Jeannie, the only woman on site, is the one that's lifting and mixing the concrete.
I think this is the worst thing I could be doing.
Keith wants to start by digging some random holes.
Don't. Everybody dig your hole a foot.
To properly anchor the fence, Keith should be digging these holes half the length of the posts.
What, like this?
Yeah.
Hey, boss man, you gotta move that one back.
Nothing's level, nothing's measured, nothing's straight.
Push it back for a second. Just push it back for a second. Yeah, you see the rope come back?
Keith is the only worker on site not stressed.
He's a visionary.
Okay. Power down the neuroses, everyone, and power up the work.
After being here for a week, most of the handymen are steadily improving, and they want to keep getting better. Today, though, under Keith's leadership, no one's gaining any knowledge, and it's causing tension.
I really would like to learn how to do this stuff.
You know how long 36 feet is? I'm just curious. I just want to know.
It's 1 foot longer than 35.
I didn't feel annoyed that Keith led. There was no plan and no measuring.
And no hard labor being done by Keith.
That's very good. Thank you, Daryl, for doing that.
Why are we the only ones working?
I'm thinking. You should see my head.
We had high hopes that Keith would really take charge of this challenge and get his hands dirty and learn something, which is what he told us he wanted to do when we first met him.
David and a friend of ours were building this thing and renovating this big, huge room, and I was literally always just sweeping. Like, I don't want to be the one always sweeping the floor.
I'm no psychologist, but I think Keith might be experiencing a little denial.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
No, it's not, Jeannie. It's beautiful.
Luckily, we have a real psychologist on site. Dr. Julie Hill is a veteran in the field of personal growth therapy.
What are your expectations and goals for this time here?
I'm going to try to stay as focused as possible and not let, little things kind of throw me off.
When the doctor met Keith a week ago, she told us just because he wants to change doesn't mean he will.
One thing that psychological research shows is that our beliefs don't predict our behavior. So he may believe that he'll do it, and then it may not necessarily predict what will happen when it happens.
We're not seeing any evidence of Keith wanting to work or learn today.
Well, I'm just curious about Keith as a leader in general.
I think he can barely manage himself, let alone like a group of functioning people.
We're not actually spacing these pickets out? Keith, are we not spacing these out? We're just throwing them up?
Why bother putting up pickets just kind of randomly? Why not put them up from left to right or from right to left in an even-spaced manner? You didn't measure, you have no reason for choosing where any of these pickets go.
There is there's that quantum physics idea, quantum physics, where you can randomly put things up and then they will establish their own order.
That is not even close to the definition of quantum physics. And this is not even close to the definition of a picket fence.
I don't see this one coming to fruition. I don't see it happening.
Oh, no.
Barry takes a seat, and Merle has already vanished.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Foreman, where's your pickets? Where's your crew? Where's the fence?
It's coming.
Keith may not know where his crew is, but there's not many places to hide around here.
I'm hiding too, man. He doesn't even know you're gone.
No, I won't.
You stay here. I gotta go end this thing. You hide out.
End it, and I'll be back. I'll be well fresh. End it, please end it.
When the experts come down to see the fence, they come down hard.
It's insulting to call it a fence, I think.
It's insulting to ask us to critique something that's so bad.
Did anybody measure anything? No. I mean, you didn't even measure where the pickets went.
No, I
like,
know.
there's
That was the
no
problem.
consistency across there at all.
I didn't measure our level. I admit to that crime.
It's said that good fences make good neighbors. Luckily, Keith lives in an apartment building. When we return, installing a door proves hard on the head. This is Merle's home in Alberta, and this is his collection of doors.
Some people got stamp collections. I got a door collection.
Merle doesn't want to collect doors. He wants to install them, but he doesn't know how. It's a task that's been on his to-do list for a decade.
Back in the 1990s, Merle bought 9 brand new doors for his house in Sucker Creek. Since then, 3 of those doors have been improperly installed, and the other 6 are still kicking around in their original packaging. The one that he got for his daughter's room, he actually moves like this every morning. I'm not kidding. The next challenge for Canada's worst handyman should open a lot of doors for Merle.
Your next challenge is going to be hanging a door. It's that simple. Not that simple, is it, Merle?
No.
Your door is obviously taller, see, than your thing. That means you're going to have to cut the door. You know what I'm
So
talking
the
about.
door's too high for the frame.
Of course, yeah. Look how tall it is, yeah.
Right.
The door we've provided is also too narrow for the stripped-out opening, but that's a good thing. A standard door kit includes a door and an unassembled frame consisting of 1 header and 2 jambs. For installation, cut the header and screw it into place. Cut the door jambs to fit, and securely mount the jamb which the door will be hinged onto. Then, cut the door to fit for height, attach the hinges, and screw it to the door jamb. Install the other door jamb, being sure to line the strike plate up with the doorknob, and shut the door. Done.
Merle, totally stressed?
Getting there.
We want Merle to succeed in this challenge, so we've partnered him with David.
Somebody that knows doors.
Merle starts by correctly measuring and cutting the header. Then, he gets the first door jamb installed.
It fits. Look at that, we're putting in a door.
Then, a frustrating mistake. To make the door fit, Merle saws 10 centimeters off its bottom, and to make the latch side door jamb fit, he saws 10 centimeters off its top. Now the doorknob opening and the strike plate are 20 centimeters apart.
Or what if we cut some off the bottom, move this board down, and take the piece off that we took from the bottom and put it up here, and it will just shift it.
Merle doesn't understand David's logic, so he takes the whole frame down and reassembles the door so it swings in the other direction. For some reason, Merle hopes this will make the 20-centimeter gap magically disappear. It doesn't.
Oh, what the
So you ready? Yeah. Burn up. Okay.
Meanwhile, Keith can't get his first door jamb nailed up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12.
I can't get the image out of my head of him hitting a nail like 48 times to get it in. 4 minutes of bending and straightening and hitting and tapping and bending and straightening it.
Barry has cut his door 8 centimeters too short.
That's about right, see? About being the key there, yeah.
Well, we wanted to leave a bit of a gap.
Sure, in case the cat can't get in.
That's right.
Cut bottom and top of door.
Jeannie saws the bottom off her door successfully. But she screws the hinges on the wrong side.
I just want to make sure that we're doing this right.
No. The door is upside down.
No, the door isn't upside down until they flip it over. You can tell it's wrong now because the doorknob hole is chest high and it won't shut.
What?
The door only opens.
Those don't count as hits.
While Keith keeps trying to hammer up his door jamb,
I'm very sorry. I'm getting there.
Daryl is confused by his.
Closes.
Then he gets more confused.
Our cutout just has to be turned around.
Then he gets aggressive.
Turn the header around.
Detailed carpentry can cause even the best handyman to become consumed with blind rage. But smart builders take a break when they get upset.
I want to do the job right. I want to do the job right. I want to do the job right.
Daryl keeps right on going.
Never mind. No.
Oh. Just take a breath, stand back.
Merle is also near the breaking point.
Okay, what was your way?
To correct the 20-centimeter discrepancy between Merle's doorknob and his striker plate, David repeats his original suggestion.
So that much we gotta cut off. And then we'll just take that piece and fill in where it's missing on the bottom.
Okay.
Fingers are crossed.
Merle finally gets it, and when he's finished, he closes the door on 9 years of wanting to learn this simple task.
Slam it. I'm liking that.
I don't want to go to school.
Good sound. I'm liking that. Slam it in Jeannie's face.
Wow.
Let's just see if it closes.
Barry's also done. Keith's door is up, but it won't shut.
Is that as far as I can go? Okay.
Back in her room, Jeannie is a little off.
I like the fit.
So is her door. And Daryl has left through his front door, searching for something to cure his headache. When I take the experts from room to room for their final inspection of the work done, they aren't at all happy about how little pride went into these kitchens.
Keith, what we need you to do, I need you to focus, and I need you to start doing things right.
Much of the bubbly wallpaper is either offset, upside down, or untrimmed. The floors are all undone, and a lot of the plumbing is making a statement by weeping.
Oh, look, you're leaking down there already because I fear what's going on with that putty.
I thought it would hold.
I know you thought it would hold, but you think duct tape is plaster too, so... Sure.
But the biggest insult of all comes when we arrive at Barry's kitchen and find the door shut in our face.
Our job is to go inspect your kitchen. We can't even get in.
Well, I don't know how that happened.
It's time to decide who is the most improved handyman for this episode and who is the worst.
Is it just me, or did this show somehow become a horror show?
Train wreck.
Most improved could be?
I can't even rack my brain for anyone that might be worthy.
Daryl, is he the worst? He's got the worst attitude, I'll tell you that.
He's a contender, no question.
In the running.
I'm worried too. He seems sort of stretched to his limits.
Keith, he's conceivably the worst.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his wallpaper was terrible, his floor was terrible.
Oh, his yard work?
Let's talk about that.
Talk about the yard work?
Terrible.
Do we want to talk about the fence?
Do you want to include the word work in that sentence?
I could have thrown sticks in the wind and come up with a better fence. Like, just unbelievable.
But you guys figure out who is the worst, because I have an idea of who is the most improved. Well, we've reached the end of the fourth show here at the Handyman Rehabilitation Center, and in this program, it's become apparent that the confidence you've gained since being here might have gone to your heads, because our experts are worried that you're actually getting worse instead of getting better. Keith, you had 4 people ready, willing, and able to work for you during the yard work challenge, but for the first time, our outdoor project was a total failure. Keith, give me back the belt. Yes, it's that time. Now, you all know that this belt symbolizes the leader of the yard work team. So, the most improved handyman for this episode is the person who did 3 of the 4 tasks completely and correctly. And that man is this bright light.
Ooh.
Hey! That's the most improved handyman here. Hey, man. You take the belt, sir. Oh, yes. Leader of the yard work team.
I promised myself I wasn't going to cry.
We will now reveal who is the worst for this episode. Merle, I got to talk to you and say to you that our experts were really torn about this one, and they want you to know that you ain't the worst. Keith, I know you're familiar with the drill, but I have to say to you, sir...
I can't do this again.
Oh, but you're getting it, sir. it's time that you hang your head in shame.
Yeah.
Please meet me at the tool shed.
I don't hate it at the first time.
Since arriving at rehab, Keith has only completed one of his 19 challenges, and this is his second time being named the worst.
I don't like this.
Well, maybe you should do better in class. Come on.
All right, I'm coming. Oh, that's pretty.
Isn't it?
Okay.
Building his fence today, Keith was overwhelmed, so we're scaling the project down a little.
See, now I know how to make a fence.
Now let's redo the one outside.
Next time on Canada's Worst Handyman, things spiral out of control.
Turn off now. Doesn't matter what you think when you're dead.
That's a big cut. It's not good enough.
Oh,